No one's gonna take my soul away. Jim Morris heading towards the fucked up one day. Mountains, breeze, breeze, and I'm singing. But yeah, give it to me. It's heaven what I truly want. Innocence, oh, innocence, oh.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Wait, now I do, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. How did it go?
Okay, good. It worked. So that did work. It did record. So I think we're being recorded right now, and if we're not, whatever. I'll just write down your answers and we'll see how it goes. But yeah. How have you been?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still, well, I left Dallas a year ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm still just kind of feeling like I'm living in Alfred, and it's really pretty here and in the woods, and
yeah.
And so it's been really nice to shift out of the city thing, and it was the same with Provincetown when I was there. Where it was just really slow and chill, and so I've just been kind of doing that for a year and making work, and then just getting to a point now where I'm starting to feel the desire to get things out more or something. So
yeah,
I'm doing good. I've got a lot of I've got another residency coming up soon, and so I'm just basically doing a lot of thinking about what I want to make and how I want it to exist in the world, and sort of the way I'm going to sort of approach things, being in this new position of kind of being with no real home base at the moment. Basically.
Yeah, really. I mean, it sounds kind of like a fantasy, honestly, of that's a lot of freedom, and to also be not in an overwhelming kind of ugly place. I think of Dallas being, but I don't know, I know I always think what you're doing right now sounds really ideal to me, but at the same time I know that if I actually did get that I would probably be melting down all the time too.
Right.
That's just how I am in general, though. It doesn't matter where what I'm doing, I just do that.
Yeah.
No matter what. But really, I mean, that sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, same. I mean, it's I think I ended up doing this now just because I just kept on making that choice to just keep trusting that if I keep trying to make the best things I can, that I'll somehow be able to keep doing that or something, which is it's some sort of weird impulse. And it's that's the thing that I end up examining a lot these days, is it's what's the because it's every time I make choices like this, it's not it's easy or something, it's not
right.
the easy, it's actually the hard choice every time to to turn down a job or whatever it is in order to keep sort of doing this thing. But it's but that's the thing, it's every time I make that sort of leap, it keeps sort of giving back it in all the ways that you want it to, which it's sure, money is something, but more than that, it's feeling I'm actually connected to people in the world, and because I've been on the other side of that where I felt I had no connections at all, and so there's something about trying to find some truth and some ground in myself and in things, and in letting that be the sort of core of it all, and the driver or something. I don't know what that even means or where I'm going most of the time. I have ideas of what I would like, but it's all this super loose construct anyways. And
I actually really relate to that that impulse to go with a kind of, I mean, I could be kind of cliche about it, but I think it's just like a true cliche that it's like almost like a higher purpose or something, like that I have like a drive in me that tells me to like go towards the thing that's really inspiring. And if I have that feeling about it, like I've had that, I don't know if this is exactly what you're saying, but I'll put it in my own experience that like I've never been misguided by that feeling. Like never, ever have I gone with that, following that impulse, that it's misguided me, you know, and it always does feel like you said, like it feels like the more dangerous thing to do, or like the riskier thing to do, or the thing that you don't really know what the outcome is going to be, and it's not as stable and all of that. But like it never seems to be wrong, because I don't know, it's like I don't know, I guess it does seem like kind of like I can hear people arguing against that to me in my head right now. You know, like art people.
I mean,
but it just works. I don't know.
Totally. I mean, that's part of that thing too. It's like there's this like, I mean, you know, when you kind of like go through the world and carry two simultaneous, you know, like opposing truths in you. It's like, you know, it's like anytime you make a choice like that, for me anyways, there's always this part of me that's like full on like mystical, like magic, like, you know, like energy, and then this other part of me that is like doesn't believe in any of that at all, and we're all just these sort of meat bags that like to make up stories to make ourselves cope with life better, you know, and I feel like, you know, it's like I you know, I carry both of those things in me all the time, like, and so there's always that thing where it's like, yeah, you make the choice because you feel all those feelings around the mystical and all those things, but then you also stay grounded in making those choices because you don't believe in any of it.
I've said so similar to my experience. Just like I feel like you have to be able to. I feel like I'm deluding myself if I don't go back and forth between those two, and maybe even some others. You know, I'm like, I'm denying something about my experience that I can't if I want to be honest with myself. That's really interesting. We're already talking about stuff that I feel like really relates to the limit experience idea. Like the whole idea behind this project is to really what it is to look at art making experiences not with like the standard method of like interpretation, but by like going into people's artist experiences and like forgetting that it's even art at all. And just thinking about like, well, what were, like, I think when you talk about it sounds like faith, like you have like some sort of faith in your decisions to pursue your art, that like if we examine like those kinds of impulses and the driving feeling and like the knowingness and that you feel around that, like and like the risk that you're taking, I'd say like that has something to do with limit experience. Like I think like you can also look at it in terms of like, you know, like extreme experiences. That's what like Michel Foucault was thinking about when he first started writing about limit experience, like, you know, like doing kind of crazy things with sex and drugs and all of that. And then like the other way that people have thought about it, I wrote about specifically that psychologist Carl Jaspers, who wrote about it in terms of like catastrophes and tragedies in life that you don't plan for. But basically all of that stuff is just like things that happen that you choose or you don't choose that discombobulate the normal experience and kind of like launch you into like I think it's like a spiritual state. And like after we killed God philosophically or whatever, we just had to like come up with a different way of describing it. So people started writing about, you know, like lots of things, but I think limit experience is like one of the ways that people talk about it. So I basically just want to talk about art in those terms instead of in like, well, what was the artist's intention? And like, here's some stuff about philosophy and history and stuff.
I mean, that's great. And you know, that's pretty much where I come from naturally with it all anyways. I mean, for the most part, I feel the same, and it's a good thing that you're doing. I mean, I get super turned off even by a lot of the way that art gets talked about, and also it's like, you know, when you even say that nowadays, that's such a broad thing to say. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's just like infinite sort of ways that people, every single person that says something has a different, you know, there's no like homogenized thing about that, and I like definitely have always, you know, it's like I always try to like explain what I do is like I'm doing what I'm doing, and I feel like lucky that there's something in the world called art that I can stick it into, because I would be doing whatever this thing is anyways, and it takes all kinds of different forms, and it just happens to take forms that, you know, are like things that are art things too, and so people, or you know, it's like as far as the art things that are in the world of mine, just like any other artist, I guess, it's just a slice of what is actually happening, and things I've made, even, you know, like in all these different sort of ways that things can exist, especially digitally now, like with like and writing too, you know, but you know, video and audio and even like just idea on top of idea, and I don't know, I feel like I'm doing all of this out of definitely like an impulse to stay alive, to, like you said, to be honest with myself, you know, like it's like there's like that's, I don't think that's actually an easy thing to do, you know. I think it's actually like, it's like we try, everyone says that or tries to do that, but part of that means breaking down all of the social constructs that exist around what you even think you are, and that takes a lifetime, you know, like to do, like it never ends. So and so for me, like I'm always in that place, and I never know what's going to happen or what I'm going to make, but in that way, I, you know, and I love like conversations like this, or any like the residencies are great for me, and moving around is great for me, because you know, they put me into these positions where I'm faced with like a puzzle that I have to solve, you know, and then and that puzzle incorporates this thing of like growth in myself and connection and truth and all that shit, you know, like, and then I never know what's going to happen, you know, like, and it's like there's all this fear in that, but there's also so much excitement, and that's totally like, you know, as far as limited experience goes, like what you're talking about. I feel like I'm like, I think about that in my life a lot, where I'm like, well, like this is my life, and I want to choose how I challenge myself, you know, like, and some people like jump out of airplanes, or, you know, like dive deep into mathematics, or, you know, whatever, cook, or, you know, whatever the fuck makes sense. And for me, it's this thing of like my own psychological states and the way that people are in the world, and I'm rambling a little bit, but I know that a lot of that comes from, you know, like growing up and seeing a lot of, you know, being exposed to, being affected by violent crime and stuff like that as a young person, you know, like, and losing faith in my heroes at a very young age because of learning about various, you know, terrible things that people I loved did, not in my family, not, you know, but like people that I respected, you know, like, and so like it's like, you know, there's been like the big puzzle of my life from the beginning has been sort of like piecing together what's beautiful, you know, like it's like okay, like here's all the terribleness, it's easy to find that, you know, like, and it is easy to find the beauty, but it might not be that easy to feel it, you know, and that's the sort of the drive, you know, because those are some of the most beautiful moments when that happens.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And you said a bunch of things that made me think of stuff that I've been thinking about, and that's really important to this project to me, which is like, it's thinking, you know, I'm trying to think through things in a way that becomes, like you said, beautiful and interesting, instead of like deadening, which I think a lot of thought around art is right now. And it's critical. And that brings me to like this thought that I've been having lately with some work that I'm doing with other people, and that you talked about in terms of your work, which is that like we talked about how there's got to be some disruption for that kind of limited experience to occur, whether it's like your loss of faith and the people that you admired when you were young, or a move, or something violent. I think of it as like this. There's a discomfort, a disruption, there's violence, there's discord, there's something that like a lot of people would react negatively to, and there's destruction in that. It's like a natural part of that type of experience that ultimately becomes very productive. And this is like it's like a trope. Everybody knows about it. It's like the phoenix thing, but like I feel like in our culture right now that's been kind of pathologized to where it's like there's a lot of talk about how, I don't know if you've heard this trend, but I keep hearing it in passing, and I've read it in some articles that I can't remember who wrote them or whatever, but like, it's like, oh, artists, they don't have to be so desperate and tortured. You can just be normal and all of that. I'm like, it sounds kind of like we're trying to make everybody like even and gray in a way, and I think there are some artists who have a much more even experience than maybe I've had, and I don't want to take that away from anybody, but like I also don't want to pathologize the kinds of experiences that produce like really incredible things, like destructive things, things that require some level of like breakdown to produce, and I struggle with that though, and this whole question, because it's like, well, just because there's some level of destruction, maybe some disruption, maybe even some like violence to an extent, it doesn't mean that there's not going to be like a flowering after that. It's not like a purely destructive force. So that's one thing I thought of. I don't know if you want to respond to that. It's just something I'm thinking through.
Sure. Gosh, yeah. You get into the whole like, the perception surrounding what destruction means, or not what it means, I guess, but like, it's like, I can't think of any of the little phrases to sum it up or whatever, but it's like, I try to recognize no matter what's happening as being like relevant, like it's like if something terrible is happening to me, which obviously like something terrible is going to happen to everybody at some point,
right?
If it and has or is happening or has and is going to, it's like it's just part of what life is, and it's like and so to think about like producing work in those places, and it's like when if I'm like super depressed, then I make super depressing work, and if I'm really happy, then I make fucking happy work,
Yeah.
But then I also react to the work, and I can be happy, but I can see I'm only making happy work, and I can get sick of the fact that I'm making happy work, and then all of a sudden I want to dive into something dark, and maybe I'm more capable to do it in that moment because I've been feeling better, and then I do it, and then I don't feel good anymore, and I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? But then maybe I find something important in there, and then I have to see that through because there's something there that I think I need to look at. And then, sometimes I put it down and I come back to it years later even because of it, and there's projects that I've got going like that are mostly writing projects that, take me years and years to do because have been taking me years to do because I just can't sit down and do it for over and over and over again every day because it just breaks me down. And in a way where I'm like constantly looking at things that are, not fun to look at or something like that.
Yeah.
And and then just to say too, like, like a lot of, like moving, you said like all these events that have to take place in order for something to happen. It's like, that's so much of what I've found to be like how I've fully navigated my whole life. Like I couldn't have done a damn thing unless I made a choice that was for the purpose of changing my external like world, like the place where I live or the place where I'm working or the people I'm spending time with or even the thoughts that I'm allowing myself to have or the books that I read or, the movies that I, whatever, however I'm going to control my intake of life is. And obviously I like falter and not falter, but I like, I hit these spots where I do nothing but watch Marvel movies or something, or I'm like, like, or I'm like, looking at porn too much or something, or I'm like doing things that are like, okay, this is like making me feel good now, but it only lasts so long and I can't keep doing it, and there's got to be something better,
Yeah.
And so then now what, now I'm faced with like, it's like, and the thing is, I don't like taking those scenarios and putting them into like, this is good, this is bad, this is, because then I'm all of a sudden my life becomes some sort of moral roller coaster, which is ridiculous,
Right.
Like the core of everything for me has been just trying to love myself my whole life, because I've, like so much of it was being faced with like, I don't know, not being enough or being kind of like emasculated a bit when I was younger for whatever reasons that are, too much to go into. And like, and like being, like dropping out of high school and feeling like a moron, like, and like all these things, like, that I've had to, and not only that, but just like the regular human experience every day of just being faced with this like onslaught of absurdity that nobody can handle, like, and so, it's like the ways that I've found to do it anyways have something to do with, looking at all of it with the clearest lens I possibly can, and that happens to be what art does. My art is, right? Like, finding that clarity in it all or something through like some sort of truly absurd act in a lot of cases, or at least, if we can talk about art.
Yeah.
It makes us talk about it, like, which I don't know it does, like, because it's like, it's like, anyways, this is how these conversations go in my head and when I talk about it, because it's just like, it's like, art comes from all these absurd actions, and like, and I was just talking, or like, following this clown, like person online or something. They were talking about solving the impossible with the ridiculous as being the sort of mode of clowning, and I like, and that suits me so well. I feel like that all the time. But then I also look at art and what that really means in the world, which is just like the fucking, the core of people reaching into somewhere in order to make sense of things, in order to find like, places that touch into the invisible, into the other, to try to understand the unknown. And then, we end up with a lot of really cool shit because of that, like, and me and you having this conversation and dissecting our own like existences is cool and fun, and it's like, I don't know, it's like in that way the absurd becomes like this insanely functional, important thing that works better than any antidepressant or something.
Right. I totally agree with that. And I went through like a bunch of things that I wanted to touch on while you were talking, but I'm going to land on this one because it seems the most important. But what you just ended with, the idea of the absurd being the thing that allows you to find something that matters. This is exactly like, it's just using different terms for how the idea of limited experience has been described. It's like, it's basically like I'm so interested in it because it just, like you say, it describes the complexity of art experience in a way that like kind of standard modes of discourse don't. Like, I don't know, like traditional philosophy can't, because it's all about like reason and logic and all of that. And then like, I think history can't, for whatever reason. So basically, I'm going to cut myself off before I start rambling too much, but it's been described as like error. So error as unintentional, stuff that we do without really knowing that we're doing it, but that might be like the most fruitful type of, action that can happen, is the mistaken transgression that reveals all these things, about our reality and our experience and all of that we never would have planned for. And that's consistently my experience, is that like, I feel like if anybody pays enough attention, that you notice, I start to notice like I'm not really in that much control. And all these mistakes or things that I didn't plan are actually what's producing the most fruitful, interesting, like beautiful or sublime or whatever things that that I'm interacting with. And when you talk about clowning and the absurd, and even just art, you could talk about art, because art is like it's like a structured action. It's something that I make a decision to do. So it's already kind of contained, like art or clowning or just like practicing the absurd. is like a method for causing some of those like realities to emerge by clashing other realities into them or something. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but I'm just really fascinated by that idea. That, you know, it's like all of this is it's just all unpredictable, and that's not like the bad thing. That's the good thing. And I don't know, maybe that's part of how that's to me how art functions now. That's like different from how other things function right now, as far as like meaning making and why are we here and what's going on and all of that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and the art, whatever that means, I guess, if art can just be the way something's done, then it exists in kind of everything anyways. And it's like, and maybe nowadays too, there's even, it's like we're heading into a time where everything's becoming more integrated together. Like it used to be that there was all of these sort of disparate groups doing experimentation and figuring things out, and some of them were working on the same things on different parts of the planet and didn't even know about each other,
Right.
And now we're getting to a point where things are compounding, and some for the worse, some for the better, like, and art, is one of those, is just like any other thing that's existing, is wrapped up in all that stuff, like, and because of that, manifesting in all these different weird ways, and just like art's always been in this sort of weird place where it's like, like the academic institutional stuff that surrounds it, like, knows all about what's happening and what art's been, and maybe has like an idea of, I don't know, like where it goes or something, but then the general public, still doesn't know about like the conceptual art period of the 70s or something, like.
Yeah, and they don't care.
and it's become unimportant at this point, truly. Like, it hasn't, obviously, like, but as far as the universal consciousness goes today, like, it's like art has already entered into where it can be everything, like, and because of that, it can also be T-shirts, and it can be, like, people slinging buckets of stuff around on Instagram.
Right, exactly.
Like, and it can be all these different things, and it's fine, like, it's like nobody can contest that, really. People can have opinions about it all they want, but you can't contest it, like. And,
right, not in a meaningful way, not in a way that's
right.
That's powerful in the way that it would stop that from happening.
Which wouldn't matter if it did, because it never stopped happening. It's just like, when I was in Provincetown, there was this little pamphlet that I picked up to read about the residency I was at, and it was talking about, like, I think it was like Gerhard Richter or something, and how he used to, like, hang buckets from his ceiling and poke holes in the bottom in order for it to spray out all over a canvas on the ground, as a form of automatic drawing for him to, like, start pieces, And I don't know, I was just reading that and I was just like laughing. It's just like, it just says this. It's the same thing, like, it's like people are just doing the same stuff and they give it a different name, and then and then the powers that be, which, whether it be social media now or the rich or the institutions, all are the ones that create that story in the end, and then artists like me and you and this project that you're doing are the things that sort of like, scoop up the things that otherwise might just be left aside or something.
I've been thinking a lot about, to me, that what you just described, it's like, it's like you just described, like, the structure of, like, how taste and power, like, intersect with each other, and it's like, it's just a cycle, like you say. It's like the institutions or powers that be or whatever decide what the taste is, the proper taste, and, and then it's like, I don't know, it functions in the world, I guess, and then, the narrative is repeated until there's something that purposefully disrupts, and, like you say, everybody's just kind of doing the same things over and over again. And another thing that I think of in terms of all that is that we think, like, and I always believe, and it's like a driving thing, like it's a good thing, it's like it's inspiring, but I always think that I'm, like, coming up with something And I feel like I really know, even though I always have this sense that I'm about to discover something. Like, I know I'm not. I know I'm just going to come up with the same thing that somebody else has come up with, like you just said. However, the act of playing, like, that's how I think about it. I'm like playing in the world. I'm playing with materials, whether they're like in my studio and they're paint, or they're like, I don't know, some objects, or they're people. And it's the act of doing that produces something worthwhile, which I don't even know if I could describe exactly what makes something worthwhile, but I don't know. That's another thing I've been thinking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, what was the thing you said before the? I got distracted by a deer outside for a second.
You're good. Taste, was it that when I was picking up on what you're saying about the powers that be? And
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I got a little lost there.
No, you're totally fine.
I struggle with phones sometimes too. Yeah, I don't know. Now I can't remember what we were even talking about.
No, it's totally fine. We can just move on to the next part of the interview too, if you don't want to talk about. I just brought up taste because I just wrote a long essay about it that we put out in this zine that me and some of my friends here started a fake cult, and we've been. I don't know exactly what we've been doing. We've just like been cosplaying that we're in a cult, and it's like kind of ironic, but not really. Like, we're all really enjoying like doing really weird physical things together, and it's really fun. But we just put out a zine, and I wrote a thing about taste in it, so I just keep like, I don't want to talk about it anymore, but I keep like returning to it constantly.
Yeah, taste. I mean, I don't even know what I would even say about it. It's like I know
I just don't believe in it.
You don't believe in taste?
I don't believe in taste. I think that it just is a way of power structures deciding on trends, and I think that it's a social thing. Like, we demonstrate taste to each other, and what I like and what inspires me and what drives me to make work, that's a very different thing. That's not what going to a gallery and like proving that I like the right kind of stuff so somebody's going to listen to me, that's not the same thing to me at all. Like, what is beautiful to me, and I don't know. And anyway, I've just been a little bit obsessed with that lately.
That's that is a good one. I feel like so many artists have I guess I kind of remember a snippet of a thought I had while you were talking. But it was like, I was thinking about the drive to make things, because it's like you were saying, like, things, it's like you have an idea, but then it's existed before in some form, which is just the ongoing thing. But also, it's but then there's the discovery of like doing that anyways, like, and you did it for your reason, and if the reason's true, then you'll find some sort of something there. And I guess the thing in the end just comes down to the fact that you do anything at all in the first place, because that's the real challenge of it all.
Yeah.
It's like, you can like think and talk and an idea all over the place, but if you don't actually just like do things and whatever that means for you, like, and then actually like be able to interact with those things outside of you, and then push to actually have them have a conversation in the world somehow.
Right.
Like, then you're like, that's half the battle anyways. It's just doing things. And then as far as taste is concerned, to me, that's been one of the driving factors in my life of doing things, is that I hate everything. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I don't like any of it, like there's things that I can find about everything that I can say something positive about, and it's not that I go around feeling negative about it all, because I don't. I feel like art and art making and creativity is like, it's probably the most important thing that any human being can do in order to like empathize and connect to people and understand things in like these larger perspectives, like reading a novel or something, like stepping outside of yourself, and letting images like affect you.
Yes.
Whatever. Like, it's like these are all the things, and yeah, I think that I think that I, look around and there's so much about existence itself, not even just art, just existence, that tears me apart, and what do you do? Like, it's like I'm so powerless. It's like, but I've read all these books when I was a kid and seen all these paintings and I've seen all these different things, and they might not be my favorite things now or still or whatever they were, but man, it's like
they moved you.
They moved me. They made me realize that all of this weight that I felt inside of myself because of all of the whatever that I saw or perceived or whatever that nobody communicated to me or with me or told me about, like suddenly I felt seen. Like I felt like I was part of something. I understood it, and it filled me up, it gave me life, and that's something that I always return to in thinking about my own work, because it's just like, well, the more I lean into doing what I want to see in the world, the higher chances I have of finding that connection with other people,
right?
In the world through my work, and that's a big that's one of the big reasons, besides just living in Dallas and not being kind of tired of cities and stuff. Like, I moved because I just felt like I was in Dallas and I was in this weird like valley, and I would make all this stuff and work so hard, and I would try to push it up and out of it, and then it would just kind of roll back down into me, and just keep rolling back. And it was like I had to leave, like, and if I ever wanted anyone else to see what I do, I had to like leave the area.
Yeah.
And so I did, because it's like that's what I really want. It's like I sure I want to make the stuff, but man, I really want people to see it now. And I think that was something that I was like, as a young artist, scared the shit out of me, was people seeing it. It was like I did it because I had to, and that was part of it. And I would, and of course it felt good when people thought it was good, but it sure didn't feel good when they didn't, and then, there's so much fear in that, especially when you're a professional and you're putting stuff out there and you're like, it's like I could take this risk, but it could also like end me, and all these things that I care so deeply about. But then in the same, it's like, that's one of those things where it's like those are the questions, and those are the battles that I want to fight in my life. Those are the questions that I want to answer, and those are the things that I'm cool with, and that's why I do it. I would much rather have that question and that conundrum in my head of figuring out how to do all that than like working a 9-to-5 so someone else can make money so I can be part of the market economy. Like I'm not, and I don't give a shit. I feel so far outside of all that stuff that I'm, I'm living for totally different reasons.
Yeah, it's better to, it's the willingness to experience something that you don't know what's going to happen, because, like you said, I would say, like, going back to what you said at the beginning of this last exchange, that like those images or words or whatever kind of art that you don't even like anymore, how that affected you, that creating that effect, like being able to affect like that is worth it. At least, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but that's how it is for me. Sure. It's like that is the reason why I'm willing to take so many risks, because of just the little glimpse of that. Like, I don't even know how I would describe it, but by those other artworks, like, that legitimizes every action. And I'm really interested in that idea of, like, well, what if, like, I don't know. This is just how I look at art in general. And I'm like, okay, well, how can I want to start, like, discoursing about it in this way instead of in all the other ways. Like, what if that movement, like, it moves you. You see something and it moves you, and it doesn't really quite matter, like, what it is necessarily, like you say. Like, it might have been Blink-182 at some point, and I don't feel moved like that anymore by that, but it doesn't matter, because it had this, like, powerful effect on me that caused me to do something. So I don't know. I'm really interested in thinking about what artists do now in terms of, like, the influence that stuff has like that, and that's affective. It's like it gets to your heart. It kind of completely like cuts through everything and then pushes you to take some sort of action. And it seems like very pure-hearted to me. Like it just comes from the absolute best place,
Right. Well, it comes from a search, right? Like it's like, yeah, it does. Yeah, it comes from a search instead of like an answer or something. Like it's like, because things that come from an answer are the most scary things, like it's like, like religion.
Yeah, well, this is what it is. Yeah.
It can be really good in a lot of ways, except for the blind trust in an answer,
Yeah.
And I guess that's the thing, is it's like, it's like, like we're talking about how art can be like it's like maybe it's an answer, but it's a temporary answer, like we're talking about things that we liked at one point, and it doesn't even matter if we still do. And it's like, how great it would be to be able to make things that people can love and then one day hate.
Right, exactly. And none of that matters as much as the fact that it just makes you do something at all in the first place. That's what matters. It makes, like you said, it's the doing of the thing that matters. It's the taking the action and the engagement. And I've moved, like, the limit experience is how I started this, because the limit experience to me is like that's just the beginning of this process, like where there's this destructive thing that happens that allows you to see and feel like on a new level. And like, from the wreckage, it's just such a common human experience. It sounds like a cliche, but it's like so essential. It's so necessary to human experience, I think. And then after you have like new eyes from that, then like all of this other, I think it sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes can allow people to, decisively move through life, making these kinds of decisions that we're talking about. Like, I'm going to go towards this risk or, whatever. I don't know.
It's like a near-death experience is the sounds like the, most extreme form of that. Like,
right. Yeah, totally.
Because when you have that, nothing else is so heavy anymore. You're like, you lived, you almost died, you lived, and now it's like, well, like, why would I worry about whether it's a painting or a sculpture?
Yeah, I know, right? That's like the stuff that I don't care. I do not care. I feel like we're talking about the wrong things when we keep talking about that kind of stuff,
Exactly. Like, and that's a hard, like, what is it? Is paradigm the right word to shift out of? It's just like,
I'd use it, yeah.
It's like the go-to thing, right? Like, that's how we...
Well, it's safe. It's comfortable, and it has rules and boundaries, and that is all stuff that makes people feel comfortable. And the limit is literally the transgression, the crossing of the boundary, which is really like, I mean, I have lots of opinions about this, obviously. Like, I have an entire thesis. Like, I think that's where art takes place is, like, fight me, whatever. I really think that art takes place at the crossing of the limit. Like, I don't know, I might disagree with myself, like, after we get off the call, but I'd say, like, the real art takes place at the crossing of the limit, and everything else is just leading up to that.
The art that Jessamine wants.
Yes.
Is that art. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. That's what I want, because that's what I think moves people. That's what I think causes people to take action.
I agree with that. I mean, like, man, it's like some of my favorite things that I see, if I have to just like pull it right out of the top of my head without thinking about it at all, like, I can't even name a performance necessarily, but damn it, I love it when people just like get up on a stage and just sort of somehow creatively like spill their soul, like it's just like the rawest form that it can get, where it's just like a fucking 720 video with shitty audio. Like and I'm saying that not because of, I'm just saying because we're so used to everything being so fucking cleaned up now. It's like,
I know.
Like I've been watching a couple of movies on old DVDs on like like a screen, and it's just funny because they're 720, you know, like it's like the old DVDs of movies aren't even 1080 or whatever they are.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I guess like we're surrounded by it now. Like you go to fucking, you know, like Walmart or whatever, and you know there's like 100 of these like crisp, clear television screens that are literally clearer than life somehow.
Yeah, they're all playing Marvel movies.
All playing Marvel movies, and which I can get into tomorrow. But that's another conversation.
I know. I realized I was opening a can of worms.
I like superheroes, I like the psychology.
Yeah.
The movies are terrible, but anyways, yeah, like it's like, I guess what I'm trying to say is just like the rawer the better, but also the rawer the less known it is. Like across the board forever, like it's always going to be that way. Like that's how it works, right? Like it's like, and if it were to go the other direction, I mean, man, we would be living in probably a very different world, like because the understanding of what it even means to be an artist would be completely changed. You know,
right.
So much of the art that we see and you know affects the architecture that we live in, the entertainment that we like, the way things look, the design behind everything, you know, whatever it is, like our phones and all of it, like, you know, it's like it's all being driven by this sort of like, this thing that has very little to do with like humanitarian, like, I don't know, core values.
Okayness. Yeah,
like and much more to do with human manipulation, you know, like, and like in the hidden sort of ways of being able to like make someone feel sick with a color, or make someone want to spend with a sound, you know, like, and it's like, and like if everything becomes geared, our world that we live in is very much made up of that, you know, like, and so as an artist today, it's like I find it pretty goddamn important to not fucking do that, you know, like, to recognize where it is and to do the best to just sort of cut through it, you know, like, and present things the way you want to, which I want to, you know, which again, like, I'm curious with flirting with the way that things are, you know, with high tech and stuff, and I have all these ideas that interact with that, and some of them I'm able to make, you know, like, but all of it does come down to that sort of, you know, using those things in order to sort of subvert reality in a way that feels like something very, you know, like necessary for our minds or something, like, or for my mind anyways, to see or exist in.
Yeah, no, I really find the idea of like the rawness that contrasts with the, you know, it's just like it's a dual thing, I guess. I know for a while dualism wasn't okay, but I'm going to say a dualism idea right now. Just, you know, order and chaos, or like, you know, destruction and creation. It's just like, you know, they really need each other, and the rawness that artists bring to the table, it comes from, you know, that willingness to be destructive and the, you know, kind of raggedness. And I used to think that, I don't know when now, I can't really remember quite exactly when it shifted, but when I was younger, I used to be like constantly offended that art wasn't taken more seriously, you know?
Yeah, sure.
And I actually think that feeling, which many artists share, is the reason for the existence of like things that I've completely changed my mind. That things that I now think are really not good for art, which are like, you know, like in art departments, art turning into like research, and now artists have to like present their work in like an academic setting as though they're like conducting scientific things, and you know it gets a lot more scrutiny, and you have to get grant, you know, it's like, you know, like, can't really, I don't think art functions that way at all, and I think it's actually better if the like white light of that mindset of like, can we make money off this and how is it going to benefit society, is not turned on art. You know, and I do think that, like you said, the raw stuff is never going to be consumed as much as the cleaned up stuff, because it's just, you know, it's like harder for people to get. But I think it's still like it's like the source for, I don't know, something else. I don't know the answers to any of this stuff, but these, you know, just like interesting ideas to me.
Yeah, and I think there's artists in the world that do, like, you know, like ride that middle line or something, you know, like they're able to sort of, I don't know, like, do you know Nathan Fielder?
Yes, yeah. Actually, I've been thinking about him lately because of the cult stuff. We're playing with ideas of, like, you know, sincerity and insincerity and feeling, you know, yes. So, yeah, I've been thinking about him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I feel, you know, it's like one of these things where it's like degrees of realization in people who have consumed the guy's work over the years. You know, it's I feel like, you know, I feel like he's one of the better performance artists that's out there right now. And I don't even know that there's a lot of really good performance art that exists anyways. But
yeah.
And I guess I bring him up just because of that sort of like extremely wide reach that he's sort of getting and has, while simultaneously having this like connection to like raw human experience. Right?
Yeah, you're right. That's a really important point, actually. That always like kind of comes up in my mind after I'm like, yeah, art should be raw. It doesn't matter if anybody ever sees it, you know. And then I'm like, but maybe it kind of does, you know. Well, and maybe it doesn't have to be, you know, how that like stuff that nobody ever sees that I'm imagining, you know.
And that's the choice that we all make as artists is like, you know, like if you fucking love painting and you don't give a shit about, you know, like, and I'm not talking to you right now, I'm just saying in the general, like if you, I'll change it up. If you love fucking making feather hats, you know, like, and you can live off of a certain amount and you sell a shitload of feather hats on this particular corner of this particular city, and you're happy doing it, then like you fucking won, man, you know? Like, like, you won the life, like if that's where you found yourself, you know, like, and so, you know, it's just like the thing with people like maybe artists like me and you is that, you know, like we don't have the thing that we like so much, and we maybe don't have the structure to put it in that will be a fulfilling structure, you know, like, and we don't know, and maybe even the success, I'm air quoting right now, of it might not even be the thing that makes you feel accomplished anyways, you know?
Yeah,
like
no, nothing will make me feel okay.
So, me neither, yeah, me neither, like, and I know that, you know, like, and so for that, and maybe that's part of what we're talking about, is it's like, that's why my life's structured like this, because I know that, and I think we said something earlier about like, you know, like the unknowns and how I'm, you know, maybe because of the way that I'm living life, it's like I'm, you know, things seem less stable or blah, blah, blah. But that's the truth of what can fuel my decisions too, is that everybody's fucking life is unstable. And it's all just a big illusion anyways. And that's a cliche, I guess, too. But we all fucking know that, especially nowadays. More than ever, you know, like everything's just hanging on by a thread. And so,
exactly.
And, you know, like, yeah, I'll never be okay, but I also understand that as I go through things, there's certain things in this world that do make me happy, and I'll be damned if I'm not going to, like, do my best to try to give myself that stuff, you know?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And I'm going to do it the way I want to do it, not the way somebody else does, and I'm not going to do it in a way where I'm going to have to fucking suffer to do it. Like, I'm going to make it so that I do it, so that I'm at least spending my time doing things like in the best way I can, you know, like while I can, like, and, you know, there's a lot of luck, there's a lot of God knows what else, but there's a shitload of hard work. I mean, you know, it's like, I don't know, and a lot of rejection, you know, like, it's like, I mean, the amount of rejections I've had is astronomical, you know, it's insane.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like, it doesn't keep me from doing it. It literally makes me try harder, you know? Like, and it's insane, maybe, you know, like, and maybe I'll burn out at some point. And maybe there's been times where I've even felt like I was a little bit, but then, you know, I take it easy. Maybe I just like take a break from the thing for a minute, and then my mind wanders, and I'm just like, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, right now I'm in a kind of place where I've got about like 6 or 7 sculptures I'm looking forward to making at this next residency. And I'm just like jazzed, you know, like, it's like I have so much to look forward to. I just don't want to die so I can get there to make them, you know, like that.
I know.
That's how I feel, you know, like, and that's fucking awesome to me, because I've had times in my life where I just wanted to fucking die.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
like, and so, and, you know, and I know, and that was a long time ago, you know, like now, but the reason I got out of that is by doing this kind of thing. Like, and I've explained my art like that to people before, or tried to. It's just like, it's like art saved my life,
Yeah.
like,
Same.
and and it continues to, like, but it's also not just a catharsis. I'm not in there painting with a big smile on my face. Half the time I'm frustrated as hell, like, I'm like, fuck, like, I can't get this goddamn boat to hang on the wall, like,
yeah, and it's not necessarily like emotional. It's like art didn't save my life because of catharsis, like where I was able to feel my feelings. It saved my life partially because of that, but also because I was, getting to use all my faculties to a very productive end that, like you said, made me feel alive, made me connected, made me like realize that I had all these things to offer that other people, wanted to engage with. This is right to the point of the limit experience idea, which did, like it came from my personal experience of barely, like almost not making it, and art being one of the two things that helped me to get away from that. So I think those stories, that is really important because it shows art as meaningful in a different way. But I'm going to need to wind up the call because I'm going to go be with my Nana. My pa, who's 95, they were married for 71 years, just died like a couple months ago. Yeah, and so I'm just spending every Monday and Tuesday with her to just like hang out. And I was going to see, though, if before we get off the call, because we did our conversation kind of reversed from how others have done it, which is great. Like, just wanted it to be that way once we started talking, because it was just like, you get it, so we don't have to have any kind of lead in or anything like that. But I have these few questions that kind of take it back down to the level of just like, instead of ideas and like really big thoughts, it takes it just back down to the level of experience. Do you want to answer those really quick before we get off? Okay.
Yeah.
So those questions are, number one, what's your ideal day?
Different than the day before it and the day after it.
Cool. So not repetitive, not.
It's really hard to say.
Yeah. Yeah, this is hard for me to say too. My immediate response to stuff like that is, I just automatically want to be really negative.
That's pretty positive, though. I did okay with the positivity, I think.
Yeah. So, do you have anything you want to add, or is that's good?
I mean, I guess I would just say like a day where I feel like somebody, a day where the people around me feel loved by me and I feel loved by them. And maybe like, a day where I've used my body and I feel good about using my body while I have it. Maybe a day where I even have maybe a day where I have an idea for something and I finish an idea for something would be a really good day.
Yeah.
Can you hear my cat in the background?
Yes, I can.
He's like, pay attention to me.
I know, same. My dog has been like barely able to contain that he doesn't want me to be doing this entire time.
Yeah. I don't know. Something like that.
Okay. Yeah, that does sound good. It sounds like very relatable to me. Okay, next question. Are you afraid of death?
Yes and no. The only reason I'm afraid of it is because I have way too much I want to do.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, I just have too much I want to do. If I were to have it taken away anytime soon, I would be really bummed out about it.
Yeah. I was thinking about that just yesterday.
Yeah, but besides that, no, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about dying, but I don't want to be dead.
Yeah. I also feel very similarly. I have this health problem thing that started like right after the Vermont Studio Center residency in 2020. It's this like weird abdominal pain, and I've had a bunch of surgeries to try to figure out what it is, and it's really like painful and uncomfortable, and I still don't know what it is, and now it's been like 4 years, and it's crazy, and
It is
I
crazy.
think I think I'm okay, you know, but oh Jesus. That's weird. Maybe it started recording again probably after a certain amount of time. It just gave me a message that's recording again. Anyway, the bottom line is that like sometimes I worry that I'm going to get taken out before I'm ready, even though I don't have cancer. I know I don't have cancer. I don't know what the fuck it is. I just keep going to all these different doctors and have to be uncomfortable a lot of the time. And but yeah, it's been another one of my limited experiences of life.
Yeah, totally. No, that sucks, man. I'm sorry you're having to deal with that shit. Yeah, I mean, I feel you though. Like it's like, I mean, for me, it was just like, I mean, I think I told you I lost my buddy, like one of my best friends, to cancer not too long ago.
I don't know if I know about
that. Yeah, and it, you know, I mean, like I've always had fucking, you know, mortality on the mind. Like my mom has talked about that kind of stuff a lot ever since I was a little kid. Like it was always just a sort of presence, and also my dad being shot when I was little. He lived, but there was also this like you know, this like real major realization when I was like 9 years old or whatever that, you know, like life was fragile basically, you know, like and it's like when I say the thing where I'm like, God, I just want to live long enough to make the next thing, like I literally feel like that every show, every artwork, every time, you know, it's like almost my whole life, I'm always just like, God, I've got to get this done before I die. Like, and it's almost a problem, you know, like, and it's the same reason that I have the hardest time leaving problems unresolved with people. Because I just want to get it fixed because we might not get the chance to, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, and there's that sort of thing. And, but anyways, yeah, I feel you. And I'm sorry too, that fucking blows.
Yeah, but you know, it's all like, to me there's not, and maybe this is unhealthy, I don't care, there's not really a separation from art and life, you know, because all of this stuff, it plays into the art, and then the art plays back into the life experience, you know, so like it's just like you really value self-honesty, and so do I. It's like, well, that's the point to me. Like, how else am I, like, that's how you get through this kind of stuff, not by like hiding it or denying it, you know, but like fully experiencing it and exploring it.
Yeah, totally. And knowing when to, like, you know, when you've done it enough, I think, is part of it too.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things that I hit at this point in my life anyways, in the last few years, where I'm just like, it's just like, you know what, like, I think I've actually, like, it's like maybe I've looked at this one thing enough, like, and I can take a break, and then all of a sudden something else swims in, and I'm just like, oh wow, like I like yeah, I need to like nurture my inner child. I forgot, you know, like, it sounds like a stupid thing, but it's like, I don't know. Anyways, God, I don't know. It's like, you know, the whole inner child thing makes so much sense, because it's just like, if you're gonna like raise a kid, you're gonna be so careful with your words. I would be, like, you know, like to a point of insanity probably.
Yeah,
same. You don't say the wrong thing, but in my own head, I'm so cruel to myself, you know, like. And it's like that's one of these things that's just like, you know, like in the process of fixing myself and thinking about things, it's like the thing that I've gotten to now is I just have to remember to not be so goddamn mean to myself about a lot of these things, you know, like, and like, you know, these like defeatist things where it's just like, well, maybe I'm just not meant to like have joy. well, that's not fair, man. Like, geez.
I know. I still have those same kind of thoughts too, and I've like for a while I thought I wasn't having like mean self-talk anymore because that just sounded too smart to me, for it to be like I'm not just calling myself a piece of shit. I'm just saying maybe I'm not the kind of person who will experience life the way that others do,
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe everybody else gets to like enjoy pleasure, but I guess I just don't, and that's okay because I'm an artist,
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not okay to think that way, like
No.
and I'm definitely pretty conscious of that nowadays because my mental well-being has definitely become something that I think about a lot more so than I used to torture myself pretty regularly for the sake of the work, and even physically, I used to do some of these like weird performances or whatever that would take a toll on me. And I'm just not interested in that anymore. Like I love the idea of facing the realities and the harsh realities of life head on, but doing it in a way that doesn't hurt me anymore.
Right. I so relate to that. Yeah.
And that's the thing, I think. It's like that's super common. Like if you look at art
progression.
Throughout history, there's a reason why so much like fucking rad badass music came out of like the 60s and 70s of all these like 20-year-olds, like it's like because they were the ones that were speaking, their heart was on their sleeve and they were in the middle of the shit, like, and it's like and they didn't have anything getting in the way, like, and when you get older, like you can't hurt yourself in the name of your art anymore because you break down and fall apart and you can't do it anymore then,
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, like I had realizations about like, needing to, this is all part of the limit experience idea too, that reading and working through these ideas helped me to get to this point you're talking about, where for me it was like, I want to be like a hero and a martyr, and that like putting myself through that physical, pain it was like acting out this thing that it's unnecessary for me to act out, and it really was like more personal for me than it was like, I don't know. That's part of what it came down to for me. It was like realizing that I didn't need to, like I really need to be learning to take care of myself, like you're saying, more than at this point, more than harming myself on purpose.
And, there may be times in your life where you meet people that really love you and care about you and want to take care of you, but, like, no one will ever be able to love you more than yourself. Like, it's not possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cool thing. Like, and that's, like, one of the things I'm trying to wrap my head around now. Like, it's just like, well, like, it's like, like, maybe that's how I finally, like, become a master of my domain.
Well, yeah.
Love myself, like, because like nobody else is going to do it any better than I can, like no one can talk about my work better than I can. Nobody can love me better than I can. Like,
nobody knows what I need like I do.
Yeah, same. And I'm just so used to hating myself that that's one of those things, it's just like, it's just going to take me a little time to figure that out. But also, whatever that means, it's like that makes it sound like there's an end goal, because there isn't. It's just now. It's now, and I wanted to point out too, like, and I maybe said this a couple of times already, but it's just like, I mean, to me, it's like almost everything comes down to just talking. Like maybe you're talking to yourself even sometimes.
Yeah,
but you can only, or a lot. But you can, but to be able to talk to another person and find commonality on stuff like this that we're doing right now, like to me, that's the fucking, like, I don't know. That's the
point.
It's the point of all of it.
Yeah.
So all of it. It's just like, that's it. Everything else is like little gems that you find along the way or something. But that core thing means everything. I mean, when I was high blue, I remember being in high school and I would like try to have conversations like this with people I knew, and not to throw them under the bus now or anything. They did their thing, I did mine, but I would a particular buddy of mine, like I would make him nauseous with my, because of the rapid ideas I would be talking about, and I'm a lot slower now than I used to be, even, because of all the weed smoking for 30 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, it took me until I got into college before I was able to sit down and have a deep conversation with somebody, in the years leading up to that, I was literally ready to kill myself because I felt so alone.
Yeah.
And so,
I relate to that a lot.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah,
sorry,
that's
that was a rant, though, yeah.
No, it's okay. That, to me, I agree. That's also the point. Like, that's the other thing that kept me from just, like, ending it all. It's like art, but before art, because art wasn't doing it alone. I was doing a lot of art, and I still was not going to make it.
Yeah.
Before art came that exact realization that you described, that having an interaction with another person where we're thinking about our commonalities instead of our differences, and like just sharing in that way, that's it's just so important. You can't really like put a value on it. I think I really think that's like the source of everything for people.
Yeah, totally.
Can sustain you through everything. But that was a really good answer to the "Are you afraid of death?" question. Now, this is the third question, if you're ready for it. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Okay. It's define ecstasy versus joy versus happiness.
Well, I guess ecstasy makes me think of a sort of like, let's see, ecstasy, joy, happiness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess it almost sounds like a tiered structure of like an emotional state that feels good, where ecstasy would be the least amount of conscious thought involved.
Interesting.
Like you're so wrapped up in joy and happiness that you can't even dissect it.
Yeah.
And I think if you're experiencing joy, there's something that's in between a sense of happiness and ecstasy, where maybe you I guess when I think of joy, I think of it as being a moment. It's a moment of life. It's not a state of joy or a prolonged joy, but we do talk about a prolonged happiness or a state of happiness. And so in that way, I would think that, I guess if I had to describe them, they would be tiered kind of like that, where it's like ecstasy is the shortest, happiness is the longest, and you get the most conscious thought with happiness, and the least with ecstasy, and joy rests in the middle somewhere.
That's interesting. I like the tying of like conscious states into it, and like and awareness and like physicality. I think of with ecstasy, and I don't know, I'm like so black and white about everything. I'm like, happiness, I don't even understand. I've literally never understood it. I don't know. I feel like I feel joy a lot, and I feel ecstasy and happiness. I just don't know sometimes I think maybe I don't feel like I'm depressed because I'm so active and I'm like so engaged. I'm always doing something, but sometimes I'm like, have I just been depressed my entire life and I just don't know it anymore? I just hope. But yeah, that's a good answer. Okay.
I would just say after that I also don't know that I have happiness. I know that I've had times where there was more happiness involved in my state of mind. But those are always these things that come and go in these different ways, and it's never a full experience. Like I'm never fully happy, I'm never fully whatever. And then things like ecstasy I've certainly experienced, but I'm also really leery of ecstasy because, again, to me, I associate it with the conscious mind sort of stepping aside in a way in order to experience such an intense feeling. And in that is, it's coming, it's having an orgasm, and it's and that's the thing, is it's like,
you're vulnerable.
It's wonderful, but you can also overdo it,
Yeah, and you're in a state of where you're very, very vulnerable.
Right.
Like anything can come in. I think everybody who I've interviewed so far has talked about ecstasy as having an element of danger to it. which is really interesting to me. I think it does have to do with that, like, penetration. Like, you're letting something come into you, and you're actually letting it, like, take over. I think it has to do kind of like, there's, like, religious ecstasy, and it has to do with higher power. Like, you're letting higher power come in and kind of take over.
And this is the interesting thing of being a human, is that we take that and marry it together with safety in order to get the experience without the danger.
Right.
Like, it's like, and obviously the more you go into taking the safety precautions away, probably the more
ecstasy. Yeah. The more ecstatic it gets.
Yeah, like, but I think that is a really interesting thing to me, is that place is like, like how people do that. And I'm super interested in fantasy because I've thought of my life in a lot of ways as being lived high blue, as being lived in fantasy. Like I was a blue, come here. I was like I was always daydreaming when I was a little kid. Like, like I continue to, like, so much of my life is lived in these fantasies. And like, and then, even my art making and making a career out of it. And, it's like all of these things are fantasies that I like try to make happen, like, and it's like, and then set up certain safety precautions in order to get there. It's like, and you can't call it ecstasy or anything, but there's something that relates between the idea of like, like taking like a hero dose of mushrooms or something in order to have a fucking experience, and like taking your whole life and putting it out on a ledge in order to like have an experience.
Right.
Like,
yeah, I completely
agree. In my
with
case, it's like, I went and got a graduate degree so that I have a fucking backup, like, so I can always like teach if I have to.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, that's my safety net that exists in my, like my search of ecstasy or whatever. But anyways, it's like, yeah, that's all.
No, I understand, and the fantasy thing is really interesting. I think about fantasy a lot too, because unsurprisingly, I also have like a very, very strong fantasy existence, and I think a lot about how in art we undervalue fantasy because we so overvalue like drawing and painting from observation and mimesis that we've completely ignored. And that's not just in art. Obviously, our entire culture sees fantasy as somehow lesser, like mental images and things that aren't external to our bodies, that as like somehow like they aren't real, which is in my mind just a very incorrect thought. Like, they're just as real as the stuff that's outside, and they have a huge impact, like in the same way that I think artworks do, like how we were just talking about. Like, it's not this dead thing on the wall that's just a shadow of reality. It's like it's alive, and it's got powers that are working on you, and it will make you do stuff, especially if you let it in. And it's the same thing with your fantasies. They're very, very much real, working on you, working on others, influencing actions. And I think you can like cultivate them to be like extraordinarily powerful. It's probably like what people who used to be considered magic would be like, is that people that have like really like strong control over their mental existence, and like that's like what artists probably used to be in sometimes of human history, I think. Anyway, I'm really getting like using you to talk about all my ideas.
I'm following you. No, I think like, to me, I think that's all. Yeah, dead on. It's like the scientific whatever way to even talk about it is just, the more you think about anything, the more it enters into your life, like, and so if it's a fantasy of a specific thing, it's like your mind and your body and your existence will find a way to make it real,
Yeah,
like,
to externalize it somehow.
Right.
Or like,
and sometimes you do it through a fabrication, like if it's dangerous, or sometimes you do it through just like, like manifesting something, like whatever the fantasy might be,
Yeah, I think a lot about that, how images work that way, and how like, you can have, that's how a lot of my I have a whole part of my practice that's just drawing from memory and imagination, and part of that was some stuff that you saw when we were at Vermont Studio Center, but like like that there's this mental image that's impossible, like it couldn't happen in reality, but you can make it into like a physical drawing or something like that, and then the power that has to like enter into somebody else's mind, and if like it goes back into this, I don't know, alive state in another person's mind, that is like, I don't know, I think it's like way more like there's a reason why we decided to make images and language and stuff such a dead thing, because it's like scarily powerful if you give it life back. Like I take those things as seriously as you would take like another living being.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that just a lot lately. I'm really fascinated by it, so I'll go on tangents. But the last question is just to talk about a little bit about the work that you submitted for the Limited Experience project, if you want to, or it's just totally up to you. I know we've had a long conversation, so you might be ready to wind it down or whatever you want. If you want to talk about the Tommy Gimbo performance that you sent, then that's the end of the questions that I have like done that I'm doing with everybody.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that whole thing, like I've never had any real affinity for clowns or clowning beyond like the concept of like what a clown is, like which I always found interesting, which is like kind of basically just being like anything else, it's an artful representation of like a human state.
Yeah.
Like it's a heightened subversion of something, of reality of some kind through this sort of character, and then in the way that clowns are talked about in the whole like clown world, of the psychology of clowns is that like like at least the stuff that I was finding and reading about was talking about how the clown kind of finds you, and so anyways, to get out of the heady bullshit of it, like I basically like my grandfather had died and I was at my uncle's house. I'm sorry, my grandmother died. I was at my uncle's house, and one of her old paintings, and she used to like paint as like a hobby here and there. Like she just, she was like a housewife, and they had 8 kids. She just painted here and there. And so she had this painting that she gave to my uncle that was like it was a tramp clown. Like it was basically Emmett Kelly, one of the original tramp clowns. And so I started to look into him, and I was really like fascinated by him. His name was Weary Willie. That was his clown name. And he's like Depression era like clown, like did the the acts or whatever in the circus or whatever it was, like, and just a couple really simple, really beautiful acts or whatever that he did. And in the midst of all of it, like I'm looking up all these clown acts, and for the most part I don't really like any of it. Like I'm not a big fan of clown acts, like, and what they do. And I feel bad saying that. I have nothing against clowns or anything. It's just like...
It's just your preferences.
That's my taste.
Yeah, exactly.
But, some of it's really interesting, whatever. Like, anyways, the point of it is I'd never set out to make, like, a clown performance. I basically, like, a clown kind of developed in me, and I wanted to see it, and so I did it, and I made a clown. And then I struck this point where I was like, well, what does my clown do? And basically, I ended up kind of feeling like, well, my clown, like, it's like sick of all of the clowning, like my clown, like, doesn't like other clowns, my clown doesn't like being a clown, and so my clown ended up playing sad music, and my clown did a lot of other things that may never see the light of day. I talked to you about a little bit.
Yep.
While I was doing it. And I still think about that stuff because that's the stuff that came out of that clown, was he was a lonely, crying, masturbating, music playing clown,
Yeah, which actually sounds very relatable to experience that I myself have had. You know?
Yeah, right. And he's just over it, but he's trying his best, you know, like, and so anyways, when I was in Hamburg, I was really depressed, and I was having a really hard time there, and I was like, you know, I turned 40 and caught COVID on my birthday there, like during a residency where I was like the only person, and it was like during COVID, and I barely got to really talk to people much and hang out much, and so it was like, you know, I had like a really hard time there, and my best friend had just died like not that long beforehand.
Yeah, that's when you're talking about that.
Yeah, and so I was going through a lot of stuff like that, and so, you know, it's like there's like I'm playing the accordion, which is just this accordion that I found at like a thrift store down the street in Hamburg. And then I'm like, and I've got like a candle lit, and it says, you know, something like mein bester friend, like it's my best friend, you know, is represented in the candle, and I'm just like stuck in this room, just sort of playing these sort of sad songs with him or something. And so that's where that came from. It was basically just like me spending time with his ghost as a clown who is completely like isolated or something. And so it's just kind of a dive into sadness, but also into, you know, like that inherent hope that comes along with, like, you know, like finding the beauty of it, which is the music, and also in it talking about how I don't even, you know, I never even played the accordion before, really. Like, I just kind of picked it up and just started to figure it out, and the point of, you know, like, I'm pulling out those little cue cards or whatever in the beginning, and basically saying like I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'm just trying anyways, you know, and that kind of falling back into this clown, me as an artist being a clown, like a fool, as, you know, being the fool version of doing what I do, and outright just saying I have no fucking idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of really interesting things about that piece. I think one thing that I would say about it is that, and one thing that I just admire about your work a lot is your, like, how you described earlier in our conversation, that you're like, part of what you're doing is you're like really breaking down yourself, and that, you know, that spirit of self-honesty and just honesty, and like you want the experience and the thing that you share to be genuine. And I think that that's like admirable. I think like all the postmodern stuff, whatever, like, no, it's like you're looking for something to deliver that's that another can feel, and I really admire that, and I see that happening through this whole piece. And then I wanted to say too, just the part that like that really, like, I mean, there's like lots of funny stuff leading up to it, but the thing that's so interesting to me is that when you start playing the accordion, it's just so beautiful. Like, it's so beautiful. Like, I can really feel it, you know, how like really like good to me, like how really good music and art and stuff is that it's like I could just feel what you're feeling when you're playing the accordion, and the balance of that between the opening and the silliness and the sadness, the back and forth between, like, you know, like I might think that I'm going into this experience that's, I don't know, that's like very ironic or something, and very knowing and self-aware. But when you start playing the accordion, it really shatters that, because it's just so genuinely felt. At least that's how I experienced it. Like, it's just actually just beautiful. So anyway, I thought I watched it again before we got on the call, and had that same experience of just like, dang, you really felt that accordion out.
Yeah, no, I've thought about, thanks, it was really sweet. I've thought about like, I mean, like music, I come back to music a lot, because that's actually where I started doing anything, was music. And I really struggled with it, because at the time when I decided that I was going to really push my music, I was also having the absolute worst anxiety that a person can have, and I was having these durational panic attacks for, you know, it's hard to, I mean, you know, years. It's kind of crazy, but I would try to record, and I would just start to shake because of the anxiety, and I couldn't actually get it out.
Yeah.
And I actually spent years of my youth trying to record my music, and it was absolutely impossible for me. I couldn't do it, and it felt maddening, and it actually led me into visual art because I was able to do things that for whatever reason, the record button being absent, and it not being struck within that, harnessed by that moment or whatever, of the importance of how heavy that moment was. I could actually make things.
Right, I get that.
And then over the years, doing that, it's allowed me to actually be able to play music again and record it. And I did have to get fairly drunk before I did that, in order to loosen myself up enough to really let it out. And I was thinking, and I do think about instrumental music sometimes as being a really important thing, classical music too, but just instrumental music in general, an important thing that we don't talk about much in the context of meaning in art.
I know.
Because it's for the most part, we talk about a song, and we'll say okay, here's the song, what does it mean? And the first thing that you do is look at the lyrics to the song, the poem, in order to decipher meaning instead of the music itself, And there's something really interesting to me about instrumental music and what it means to say, well, what does this mean?
Right. It's so pure and it's not mimetic.
Yeah, there's no words to get in the way,
Yeah.
It's actually just this sort of raw emotion, and not only that, but as far as music and performance is concerned, me doing it the way I did, I did edit it together a bit to condense it because I just played forever.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it had to be shorter, but the moment of performance is something that sure, people go see bands and they go to concerts, and it's they're it's whatever, they're playing the album and they're playing the music. But man, there used to be a time when the only way that we could have artistic experiences like that would be to go listen to someone play something in person,
Right.
and there's something so deeply intimate about that I really wanted to do,
Yeah. Well, I think you really did it.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. I think a lot about music stuff too, because I've always sang, and my grandparents, my grandpa that just died and my Nana, they're musicians, and I always felt I have this, I just have this pain about music, and in fact I write songs and sing them and record them all the time, and now I'm just humiliated by it. I have and I shouldn't be, I should just probably just share that stuff, but it feels humiliating because it's just there's something that's so immediate and visceral about, you say, the music, that it's art takes it several levels outside of that. This is my body saying something, an emotion that I'm currently experiencing, and hoping that it gets received. There's just something that's it's always been too much for me, but also it's just very painful to not share it at the same time.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Man, I just so many times lately I'm this is the whole thing of time, and it's what do I spend my time on, blah blah blah. It's man, I would love to go to a cabin somewhere and record an album. Go do my Bon Iver moment.
I know, right? I know. And then you're how do I explain this? It's actually, guess what? It's
yeah, and I might do it one day. I don't know, or you say, I've got all this music I've made, and for me too, writing, just so much writing. I've written so many stories, and I mean, oh my God, it's insane.
It's sad. It's why is it that we feel we can't just be all of that stuff, and just be I want to just be I'm going to put this writing out there. I'll put this on, but it's too hard for people to comprehend, I think.
Well, it's it's part of it is also audience. It's we know and understand and have the audience for making visual art, Like, and I can go write a book, but who the fuck am I going to give it to? It's a whole other process, you know, like I can go make music, but who am I going to give it to? It's a whole other process.
Right.
And not to say that I haven't, like I have. I've printed little books, little tiny short stories that I've written, and I've given them out at my shows, you know, like I've done musical performances, I've done pieces, you know, it's like it manifests, or it finds its way in somehow, but it just doesn't find its way in the traditional form, you know, like, but I'm interested in the traditional form, like really interested, you know, like, but then at that point, that's when it comes down to like, well, you know, I literally only have so much time and energy, and I can't do everything. I have to pick and choose what I focus on at any given moment. And right now, man, oh man, like I need to be applying for stuff that deals with my visual art because I'm in the throes. If I were to start writing, a real disservice to all my hard work over the last few years.
It'd be a distraction.
It could be really bad, you know, like, but then also that's the thing with me too, is I tend to do that anyways, like, and so I wouldn't be surprised if I'll go to this sculpture space residency and I end up writing a book or something stupid.
Yeah. well, you know, that to me, it comes back to the thing we started the conversation about, which is that kind of like leap of faith thing, that it's like, I don't know, the way that I function, and I think probably a lot of people would think this is like not advisable, but I just have so many, like we're both talking about, obviously it's the case for both of us. We both have so many ideas and so many interests and so many like passions that I can't, like, I just have to let the wind fucking take me and be like, okay, well, what are we doing today? Psycho God or whatever you are, you know, like I can try to make a plan, but like today I was like, I'm going to paint. And I stood in front of my painting shit for like 5 minutes, and then I like gravitated over to my computer where I haven't wanted to write this latest essay that I'm writing for the limit experience thing, and I just ended up writing that, you know, and so it's like, okay, you know, I can't control it. I can't control my creative impulses, really. I just have to give myself this like little structure and let it wild out in there, because I just like cannot control it really, and I just have to have faith that like it's gonna come out. Like I just have faith. I have faith. Like if I'm supposed to paint, I'm gonna paint. If I'm supposed to end up, you know, like singing my songs with somebody, then I will. If I'm supposed to, you know, whatever. I just keep like going with a, you know, with a in good faith into situations and not trying to control too much, and that seems to work. But like, I don't know, that's how I deal with that. So I try to control it. It's crazy making.
Me too. I mean, I've got this painting I've been working on for weeks now, and by weeks working on it, I mean I haven't touched the thing. It's like I know what the next step kind of is, but I can't do it until my body needs to.
Yeah.
And my mind needs to do it, you know, like, and if I force myself to do it before then, I'm going to fuck it up. You know,
exactly. Like, yeah.
And
it's weird.
And I could fuck it up, you know, like, and I've done that in the past too, where I fuck it up, you know, like, and then that becomes a new problem, and it always yields something even more interesting.
The error thing.
Yeah, but then again, you know, it's just like, yeah, I'm a fan of the idea of like, I kind of don't act until I have to, and leading up to that, I'm just like, it's surrounding me. Like all those things are surrounding me, and I'm looking and I'm trying to understand what the universe is telling me. Like you're saying, where's the wind? Yeah. What's the wind telling me that I should do in conjunction with what I think I'm supposed to do? You know, like, or like how does what the universe is telling me now operate with what just happened? You know, like, or like, and that's like, yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like I'm in some sort of weird communication with that thing. Yeah. And that's what that's also to talk about joy and happiness or whatever. I feel the best when I'm in communication with that.
Yeah.
Thing, you know, like,
I agree. Yeah, it's kind of uncanny to hear you talk about that, because I, you know, even with a lot of artists, I don't have really that many conversations where people would just like outright say like, I mean, if I was going to be just really honest about it, I just feel like I'm having a communication with like a supernatural force when I'm making art, like,
yeah,
and I'm just like channeling it, and that's, I mean, why complicate it? That's literally what it feels like it is. And I just like bow to the will of that.
Well, that's one of the things I love about your work is that you obviously are tapped into whatever that thing is, like there's, and I think about it whenever I think about like spiritual and like, and mystical and whatever, or being like a conduit or a channel, like I also can even point that right into like the subconscious or the unconscious mind, like, and how just how vast it really is, like, and even being able to tap into it is akin to a mystical experience. Like it's the same thing.
That's what it is. Yeah, that is just what it is. It's having like a profound like open-mindedness and willingness to let forces that I feel like are, it's not, it doesn't have to be God. It's just like force that is out of my control that I feel like I have faith in to guide me, which, that it really gets interesting because it's like, well, then what is that? How, even if it is I could call it my subconscious, or I could call it God, or I could call it whatever, but yeah, it's really interesting to talk about it, just like overtly, which is another reason why I wanted to do this project, because I feel like the way that artists talk about art most of the time makes it impossible for this stuff to come up. But if you just talk about stuff from a different angle, then it comes up like really readily,
Well, talking about life, to me anyways, has always been the way around it all, It's like, well, I could talk about, my composition and my, you know what I mean? Like, no, it's okay. Like, we could talk about all of that stuff, but at the end of the day, like, why? Like, why are you doing it? Why? Like, and it's like, and that becomes the real thing, like, where it's just like, and then all of a sudden, like a lot of the art stuff, to me anyways, it's like, you just start substituting the word life for art, and then all of a sudden you've got all your explanations that you ever wanted.
Right, exactly. I just find it like, teaching formal things, and it's like, it almost doesn't matter at all. Like, it just doesn't.
Oh, I used to butt
like heads. Unnecessary.
when I was teaching in graduate school, I would butt heads all the time with the teaching people in the department or whatever, when they would talk about like I had to teach 3D design, and they would talk about like, they would be like, well, this class is where we weed out the art students from the non-art students. And I was like, how? And they were like, well, if they can't cut a straight line, or they can't do this or that, then they shouldn't be making art. And I was just like, what if they don't have hands? Like, bleep out. I need to be throwing her under the bus. And this is not my. Just leave it out.
I will. I won't leave anything. Whatever I include, I'll run by you before we let it out, and no specific names will be named. We've done a really good job about not talking shit on this call, though.
No, it's good. No, everything's been fine until I did that. But anyways, I used to butt heads because it was like, seriously though, like, what if they don't have hands?
Yeah.
Does that mean they can't be an artist? Like, this is fucked up on principle,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's so silly. I love teaching. Like, I genuinely love it, and I love it because I get to have these like really intense, interesting experiences with other people. Not because I give a flying. I do not care. I hate the idea of the art elements and principles and all of that stuff. I find it really totally useless. Like, all of that could completely disappear, and there would still be artists. But I've just learned to. I'm feeding my dog. I've just learned to, like, go through the motions, and I know that there is value in that stuff. It's just like not nearly as valuable as I think like the stuff that we've been talking about. It's like 1% of like, knowing how to use color. It's just like playing with stuff like that is just a way of getting into like making contact with whatever that thing was that we were just talking about. It's like, if I play with this stuff, well, then I'm going to end up in contact with that thing somehow if I'm open-minded. It's the same with anything. Like, I can play with this box of peanut butter dots that I'm looking at right now, and I can have this experience with my higher power whatever it is, you know, if I want to. If I'm willing and open-minded, and I think that's really what matters. But yes, all of the formal stuff, it drives me crazy, and I've had to just learn how to, you know, just like suck it up and be like incognito about what I actually think is important, because it's never going to be that way in art education. They're never going to be like, oh yeah, really we should be teaching people to be like, I don't know, like oracles or something, you know. So it's just not going to happen. But I just looked at the time. I have to get off the phone because I have to go drive to meet my Nana. But Jeff, I'm so glad we've gotten to talk, and we should definitely just keep talking outside of interview context. So it's been really fun.
Yeah, I always have felt really at ease with you. I'd love that. So yeah, this has been great.